Peace, greetings, and salutations. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are, where you are. This is Pascal Robert, normally the co-host of This is Revolution podcast. Our host, normally Jason Miles, is experiencing some technical difficulties that are precluding him from being with us today on this monumentous occasion to discuss the 50th anniversary of hip hop. But we're going to go ahead and trudge forward to try to bring you an interesting presentation discussing this phenomenal art form and its role in shaping American society and popular culture over the last 50 years. So if you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. And if you're enjoying what you see, make sure to hit the notifications bell, as we're constantly adding new episodes, doing cross streams with other channels, and adding additional programming. Before we bring on the rest of our hosts, which will be the M2 Sun, I want to first thank all subscribers on platforms and Patreon and patrons. Without you, we couldn't do this. If you would like to have access to champagne rooms, past and present, and be part of the live virtual audience for my Mile Hour, there's only one way. Become a patron for as little as $3 a month or $30 a year. It can all be yours. Now let's bring on the crew. The faceless voice of reason, the one and only, my Haitian sister, M2.
Hello. Pleasure to be here today.
Tucson, how are you?
I'm doing good. I want to hear your stories about being at the first hip hop parties and the first Thanksgiving.
Easy, relax with that. So did you have a little dose of Haitian patties anytime recently?
I haven't. And being a vegetarian makes that really difficult.
I know. I think no one has invented Haitian patties yet. I don't think you should work on that.
I should actually, right? The Jamaicans have it.
Do they really?
They have a vegetarian beef vegetarian patty.
How can we let them beat us to that?
I know, right?
Well, we have an interesting show today. Hip hop at 50. Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stairs. You know, they just don't care. I can't take the smell. Can't take the noise. Got no money to move out. I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with a baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far because the man with a tow truck repossessed my car. That, as many of you are watching right now, is Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. The song is called The Message. The 1982 classic for many showed that hip-hop was more than a passing fad, a soundtrack to decadence like its kissing cousin disco. It was serious music. The birth of hip-hop, of course, predates The Message. 50 years ago at a house party in New York City, DJ Kool Herc was part of the inception of hip-hop. Where has it taken us, and where is it currently taking us? From the article in Revolt, our guest Justin Hunte says, "Your rise is nothing short of awe-inspiring." Really think about this. A ragtag group of rebellious inner-city youths infatuated with MCing, DJing, graffiti, and breaking sparked a fuse that ignited the world, bringing hope, opportunity, and inspiration to the far reaches of the globe. In those early years, you only existed in parks and parties that could be seen bombed on subway trains, windows to urban infrastructure. You weren't on the radio, you certainly weren't on television. You weren't yet mainstream, you were the alternative. Please welcome TR's resident hip-hop journalist, Justin Hunte.
Hey.
Justin, what's happening?
It's good to be here. Happy Saturday morning.
Happy Saturday to you. How you doing, brother? I like the conversation we were having in the green room. It kind of warms us up to the plethora of questions that Jason has prepared. I'm sure M2 as a native New Yorker has questions as well as I do. So, Justin, if you don't mind, Shall we proceed?
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
So, Justin, 50 years in hip hop, and it's the most streamed genre of music in the US. But those numbers are falling and have been for the last few years. What makes hip hop so popular, and why do you think it's starting to become less popular?
Well, what I think hip hop is, it's contagious. It's not a genre of music. It's a literal culture. It's technically a culture, right? There's a visual arts element, there's a dance element, there's a spoken word element, there's a music element, there's a knowledge element. So in that sense, that is why it has been so infectious and travels so easily around the globe, in my opinion, right? You you can. People have been writing on walls forever. People have been rapping forever. People have been dancing. People have been making music forever, right? There's every element of hip hop stands on its own, but you bring them together. That is when hip hop starts, right? So I think that with a lot of the conversations this year about what's happening with hip hop on the sales charts, for example, I think there's more skew to that than it seems, right? Well, one, yes, we can literally look at the charts and say, yo, there hasn't been a number one hip hop, at least for the first half of this year, there hadn't been a number one hip hop album or number one hip hop song on the Billboard charts. And that's the first time in 20 years, 18 years, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these charts are also very fragmented, right? So they're basing it off of what we're considering American hip hop rap songs, essentially, American rap songs, right? Bad Bunny has been killing it. Bad Bunny is hip hop to the core, right? Burna Boy is hip hop to the core, right? So there are other genres of music that have had more success this year, that have had more success globally in their own charts this year, that are also hip hop too. Just because it's not in this like for example, if you go to the Latin Grammys, they have best Latin rapper, right, or best Latin pop song, right? But that is not included. That is completely separate from the American Grammys, right? Because they speak Spanish or it's considered Latin music, and within Latin music there is hip hop. And those songs have been very popular in Latin music, and Latin music has been more popular than American music in a lot of ways. You can do the same thing with a lot of sounds coming from the continent. You can do the same thing in the UK in a lot of ways, right? So I don't think that's a conversation about hip hop. I think, well, why is American rap so stagnant? I think that's the conversation. But I don't feel like hip hop is falling off at all. I mean, if you look at all these other countries around the world, most of them are just now getting to their own golden era. Right? Everything starts off referential. In the beginning, they were singing the songs that came from America. Then they were copying our styles. Then they were copying our songs. And then they started telling their own stories in their own styles underneath the banner of hip hop. So I don't think that it's a hip hop falling off thing. But I do think that American rap is super stagnant. I will say that.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. Do you think that the kind of diminishing popularity of contemporary hip hop is a product of a larger phenomenon that's happening in America, where the overall culture industry, everyone's like, movies suck, music sucks, arts, like, there's this sense that in this particular moment in late capitalism, in the neoliberal 50-plus year counter-revolution, that creative arts in the culture industry have decreased in value. Do you think that hip hop is just representative of that overall trend, and it's not a specific consequence of the music, but it's just part of the same kind of like, yeah, movies kind of suck, yeah, movies, even books kind of suck, quite honestly. People say that about drama. So, in other words, there's a phenomenon in the greater ideological superstructure of the culture industry, the literary industry, and arts becoming commercialized that has diminished the quality of the actual art.
I think there's a few things happening. One, I think we're farther away from instruments than we ever thought. And I think there's just a natural vibration that actual strings, actual drums carry, right? So even the hip hop in the beginning was sampling a lot of that stuff. right? Before everything got really digital. Things got really digital almost out of necessity because we were getting sued so heavy for sampling stuff, right? So that's when now everything turned to drum machines, and then everything got real slowed. I mean, music in general always sounds like whatever drugs are popular, and we've been in an opioid phase for 20-something years. So everybody's been lean, the vibrations are really low, and everything's turned down. But I think the biggest thing overall is that everything has turned into marketing, right? No one wants to drop the bag. No one wants to be too woke. No one wants to be canceled, whatever. So whatever messages are coming through the music are ones that are very late stage capitalistic, right? Get that money. You better get paid now. We got a whole new cryptocurrency showing up. BRICS is around the world. America's got to compete with some people now. You got a whole blockchain worth of stuff. You better get your money when you can, because mortgage rates are 7%, and everybody is, doing everything they can to turn their phone into a recording studio so that they can have a chance to at least get side income. So I think that there is a lack of, I'm looking for something real in the world, and I think everyone is really looking around for that, and it's not coming through in rap music the way it used to. I think this culture has been has turned commercial for a very long time, and I think we're seeing the downside of, don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks.
Wow, very profound statement, brother. Let us move on. Do we have a clip from Ed Lover? I mean, Two Sons? I don't know if Jason cued that clip.
No, he didn't cue the clip. We don't have the clip.
Okay, yeah, there was a cute. Ed Lover was on a podcast. What is that famous hip hop podcast?
My Expert Opinion.
Is that the one where they're in the barbershop?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. And he made a statement that hip hop used to be about artistry as opposed to popularity. And he basically was saying that someone like Vanilla Ice with one single sold 10 million albums. But as an overall MC, Vanilla Ice was not particularly enchanting with the rest of his repertoire. But you have certain MCs who had actual talent, like I think he gave the example. My man from oh my God, the rapper from New York, who was in the symphony.
There's a lot of people in the symphony.
Oh,
that's
man.
right. That was the point of the symphony.
Oh gosh.
Master Ace.
Master Ace.
Not Master Ace. Not Master Ace.
Marley Marl.
Coogee Rap? Is it Coogee
Rap?
Yeah, Coogee Rap.
Coogee Rap. You saying that Coogee Rap was one of the baddest MCs back in the day, but probably never sold 1 million albums.
Definitely did. I'd be surprised if he has 1 million songs. I mean, like sold 1 million singles. I'd be really surprised.
Right. So basically, the point what he was saying is that there's been this battle between popularity and artistry, and that what started happening is that popularity overtook artistry. Okay, so the question becomes, being a dope MC used to mean something in hip hop, but does it still hold the same cachet? Is hype more powerful than the ability to sell records? He's going to play the clip from MT Rap's I love it. The clip I just described to you. And tell me, is he onto something, or is he just another old man yelling at trains?
Shout out to Ed Lover, man. Ed Lover's I'm fortunate to say that Ed Lover's a friend of mine. We actually worked on a project together too, so I can say that. I've had the blessing of being in the room with him while he is kicking facts, and I would say yes. I think he has, from a macro standpoint, yes. Right now, I think that you can look at any point in time and find examples of very popular people who weren't nearly as talented. Like Heavy D, right? I was talking about this before. Heavy D to me is amazing, right? Heavy D is one of the most important figures in hip hop. He could dance his ass off. Um, he made some of the biggest hits. Is It Good to You? The Overweight Lover, Heavy D. He made being overweight sexy. He's probably the first person to make it sexy. Like the Fat Boys were fun, and then Heavy D made it sexy. Like you can go get a girl and be big and well dressed, all this stuff, right? He was an incredible executive and put people on. Like he's the reason he was the one that convinced Andre Harrell to hire Diddy. You know, he was the one who signed Soul for Real. You know, he was integral in making a lot of the songs that came through. You know that Uptown Records, that legendary imprint, Jodeci and all these people. Like he was just the guy. But nobody really talked about how good of a rapper he was, right? No one was talking about him being the illest MC. You know, I don't think anybody would say he has a classic album. And I think this entire year has been a problem for me because I think they've completely forgot about Heavy D and these Hip Hop 50 accolades, right? But this is someone who was the theme song to In Living Color and Mad TV. So even if you didn't hear him, you heard him all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a level of popularity to me that he had that maybe was separate from the accolades and reverence he got for his pen. I mean, look at what's happened at this point in time, right? This is what, 86 to 98, call it 87 to 99. Right, that is the entire wave of we got super MCs now. Cats are doing math, and Rakim has already done math on the track. He put 7 MCs in the line. That was pioneering. We're doing math out here with these bars, right? That entire time, and yet and still, Heavy doesn't have the props and praise for what I consider one of the best songwriters in hip hop history, especially in that generation. I mean, most people in that generation were getting 5 years. He got 10, 12. Like usually, like if you really look at the timeline when we first heard Rakim, or the timeline we heard first Run DMC, and a lot of these guys, basically they just got 5 years and then they were out, right? My point is, here's one of the biggest guys ever, probably one of the most talented. I would say he's one of the most popular, but he was never revered for his pen. Right? We can fast forward that to Gucci Mane. Gucci Mane just did an interview with the New York Times on Hip Hop 50 saying, yo, when Birdman came out, I realized that I could be a rapper because you didn't have to be good at rapping anymore.
Wow.
You don't even have to be good at rapping. Right? So there is so many, you take that all the way up to 6ix9ine, or whoever we want to talk about. Right? You throw in other elements that are in the supply chain, right? Oh, well, actually, I'm just really popular on Instagram. And then I ended up making a song and people streamed it. Ain't that dope? Or you look at Bad Baby, right? Catch Me Outside Girl. She was like, well, I was a viral sensation. Then these guys came up to me and said, hey, can you make music? I said, no, I never done it before. They said, well, we think you'd be a good rapper. Do you want to do that? We'll take you to LA. We'll put you in an Airbnb. We'll take you around. Is this something you want to do? And she said, yeah, of course I want to do that. Who would want to do that? Right? So we are literally in an era where market movers, A&Rs, et cetera, in a lot of ways, when it comes to hip hop, are looking at how popular someone is overall before they're even thinking about whether or not this person's good or bad at rapping. Because what is good or bad at rapping at all? If Gucci Mane says he wants to be a rapper, he knows he can be a rapper because Birdman's a terrible rapper and he's underrated. So we've been it's been a long time since we've been in the, well, you gotta be dope to even be here section of this industry of cool, so to speak. And I think that instead of looking at one replacing the other, I think that we're actually in a place where multiple spheres of influence can be effective, can be impactful at the same time. Because I don't think that just because you don't have to be a good rapper now to be popular or successful, doesn't mean that if you are a good rapper, you're at a disadvantage. I don't believe that to be the case either. And I think we see a ton of that. I think you see that with cats like Ransom. I think you see that with DJ Muggs and the projects he puts out all the time. Like ultimately, these are kind of niche things. Anything Alchemist does, technically, is kind of niche, ultimately. right? But they're impactful, they're powerful, they have the support of different people on different sides of the media, they have their core base, their core fans, they're able to do what they love and have the passion that they have for a living, right? You know, now maybe we don't see them at the top of Rap Caviar every day, but maybe that just means we shouldn't be paying attention to Rap Caviar.
Wow. You have some passionate opinions on these things. I must say. All right, we're going to trudge through next. Hip-hop shows are being canceled. There's a lack of artist development, a starting lack of creativity, and there's a death of hip-hop at the top of the charts right now. What do you make of the idea that hip-hop is dying right now?
It happens every 10, 15 years. They say hip-hop's dying. You know, it's dying. It's supposed to be like disco. It's supposed to fade out. The Rakim was probably the only guy I think that had a platinum record. You know, that wasn't with, I guess, outside of like Run DMC and maybe Big Daddy Kane. Like those three probably had a platinum album. Everything else was just a singles era. They thought that was going to fade out until the era of the awesome rap album showed up right after that. And there was literally a whole decade where everybody was running around saying hip hop is dead. Nas made an album called Hip Hop Was Dead. So
Nas did make an album called.
So this is a cyclical thing all the time to me. You know, so whether it's dead or dying, again, I think there is a difference between hip hop and what American or how successful American rap songs are. Now, as far as these artists that are having trouble selling tickets, I think ego's a hell of a drug, right? You go perform at Rolling Loud and you come out, you do your songs and the crowd go crazy. And you go look at your TikTok, you go look at your gram, you got 6 million people sitting there. And you go look at your streaming numbers, you're doing 250,000 a month, 2 million a month. I think at some point people are like, yo, I could do Shea Stadium. I could do the Staples Center right now. Well, let me see, do the math. Staples Center only has 23,000 people. I've got 2 million people on my Instagram. I'm getting 2 million streams a month on my Spotify. If I looked at where they're targeted, I've got 800,000 people in LA. I could probably do Staples Center. No, you can't. Okay, you cannot do Staples Center.
Take that, little baby.
Can't do that off of a streaming product. If people ain't never touched your album, and you are, I hate to do it like this, but you are a drill rapper from any of these drill cities. No, you can't do Staples Center. Too big. That doesn't mean that, you know, you don't have a lot of fans, you can't be successful. I think people start feeling themselves. They go on these festival tours, and it starts to feel like everybody came to that festival for you. But they came to that festival for the whole bill. Even if you suck, they on drugs and drunk, everything is lit when you're at a festival. The only time a festival is terrible is when nobody's there. So I think there's a lot of ego that plays into it because, you know, people only having issues with that when it comes to big cat places, right? They're trying to make it from clubs to stadiums. Well, there's a lot of steps in between there, and you have to go on tour a lot, and you have to have a reputation for selling projects or have a real hold on your audience, right? It's not even about how much you're selling or how popular you are. It's how the grip you have on your audience and why they're there. Are they there because of the songs you're making? Or are they there because you're interested on social media? Because those are two separate things. And I would never buy a ticket to see somebody do something that I can see them do for free on Instagram.
Okay.
Damn.
The next question is kind of it's a controversial question.
Okay.
And I only asked the question because I watched a very interesting documentary that came out a few years where Chuck D was the moderator. I don't know if you watched it. The founding fathers of hip hop. Are you familiar with that documentary?
I don't think so. It was on Netflix?
It's on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out. Yeah. Send me a link.
The argument,
I'll be able to find it.
The argument posited in that documentary is that there is our story on the origins of hip hop are questionable. So I want to ask you a question: do you really believe that hip hop started in the Bronx?
I think I know the culture of hip hop is because of Africa Bambaataa saying, "Hey, we got to make this a culture. we're gonna tie all these things together and be specific about what it is." Yeah, I know that. But as far as graffiti is 68 in Philly. If you're talking about wild style, like that style of graffiti doesn't even come from the Bronx, so that's older than hip hop, right? People been rapping forever. You can even look at oh my God, I can't think of the dude. Eddie Murphy just did a movie on this. Eddie Murphy did a movie. What's it, Dolomite? Was it Dolomite? I think it is. These guys been rapping forever. So wherever you want to say that came from, that's already out there. James Brown had two drummers. That's where the two turntables came from. I mean, that and a blackout where everybody just stole a whole bunch of. The blackout happened in New York. Everyone robbed all the electronic stores. Everyone had two turntables. So that extends the break, which extends the good part of the song.
True.
So and then you could look at different styles. And they were doing the break in there was b-boy. There's black and white films of brothers and sisters in the South doing this, the juke joints and stuff like that. So I think every element clearly existed on its own. But I think hip hop don't become hip hop until Africa Bambaataa. I know we ain't allowed to say his name, but Africa Bambaataa, because he was the cultural force of the four founders of hip hop, right? He was the one that was like, and we're gonna have a whole movement around this. Like he was the movement guy, right? Once he did that, that's to me what I look at as the origin of it. And I look at the Bronx as ground zero. We can find all those things at the same time, simultaneously, every day.
Check out that documentary, The Founding Fathers of Hip Hop, with Chuck D as the moderator.
Yeah, what do they say in there?
They basically have documentation to show that Grandmaster Flowers and other cats in Brooklyn and Queens were doing it before the Bronx. They have flyers from the era.
Oh, yeah. Right. I mean,
clubs like Fantasia in Queens and
a
few other places where basically what Kool Herc is claiming that he brought from Jamaica was already going on in Brooklyn and Queens and going on in clubs in the New York City area before he had a party in the Bronx on April 11th, 1973.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think that has to be the case, though, right? I mean, that's stuff that is my understanding of the history of this, right? I mean, one, like Kool Herc, it's interesting watching old Kool Herc interviews. Like, whenever the early 80s, I guess, late, whatever, whenever he was talking. It's very interesting watching those interviews because he was very much like, I mean, yeah, but there was other guys too. I'm not really just the one. He wasn't trying to be the dude.
First of all, from what I understand, no one was calling Kool Herc the father of hip hop.
No.
In the 80s.
No.
I happen to know I have a connection on social media to an academic brother who teaches at Morehouse, and he specializes in the development of hip hop culture and urban pop culture. And he's like, part of the whole Kool Herc founded hip hop was basically because hip hop needed a superhero. It's part of the great man theory of history that you got to have this like one great man that came together and created. And he's like, it's his position is that this notion is kind of buckus. It's kind of fugazi.
Yeah, I mean, look, have you ever looked at the flyer, the Kool Herc's party?
Yes, I've seen the flyer.
I love that flyer so much. First of all, it is basically a worn index card, right? Mm-hmm. Like that flyer could have been just one of a handwritten stack. Two, there's two different fonts on two different pens. Like one is in pen. It says a Kool Herc production, a Kool Herc party. It's got its tag. It's got date, time, location, all that stuff. That stuff is in pen, right? But then it's a back to school jam. 15, 20 Cedric Ave, fellas 50 cents, the ladies 25 cents. So even in 1973, homies, dudes paying double, from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. That's all in Sharpie, right? I look at that, I'm like, I bet this mug, because he was DJing, I bet you he probably had a whole stack of just like template, and then he just drawing different stuff for different events. And people held on to this one because his thing was trying to make his speakers the loudest, which is what he did get from Jamaica. That's that dub thing.
Because a lot of people realize he wasn't a DJ. He wasn't actually mixing, scratching, or cutting albums at all. He was just playing loud music.
He was the one who had the loudest music. He won in the park a lot because his speakers were the loudest, right? And so, I think there's a lot to that one great man in history thing. But that's the thing I love about hip hop, right? If you look at Flash, Herc, Theodore, Bambaataa, right? Like they're all very different in terms of what they were most championed for, right? Like we knew Flash was the nicest. He was the one that was. We know turntablism and stuff came wasn't Herc. Mm-hmm. We know Bambaataa was the culture aspect of this. Bambaataa was the one with, that's the precursor to the S1Ws. You know what I mean? So like, I see where it comes down to where it feels like we need one great man in history. And that's why I really appreciated all the people who are posting, talking about how this is hip hop's unofficial birthday. Like it's just the day we're using to recognize it. And I'm with that.
Also very convenient for marketing.
Yeah, good. It helps, I think it helps. I don't think there's anything against it. But you're right. I mean, whatchamacallit isn't even the Rapper's Delight's not the first song on record. It's not even the first rap song to come out. Technically it's the second. God, I can't think of the first one right now. I can't think of the first. I got notes actually. I wrote it down when I was writing the editorial. I know I must have had it in my notes somewhere. Let me see.
So I have another question. The follow-up question is why should hip hop be celebrated at 50?
Wait, let me see. Where's this song at? Let me see. I gotta find this. Hold on. I'm very curious. What's the song? Personality Jock. That's it. That's actually the first rap record.
Interesting.
And it came out like either 6 months or a year before Sugar Hill Gang. But it just didn't blow up as big. It just wasn't as big of a song. So it's King Tino III, Personality Jock, right? But so there's a lot of stuff that's just look. I think people's a lot of people's goal is to not be left out the museum, out of history. And I'm glad people are talking about, Flowers and the other mavens who were, instrumental in building this culture before that may not have gotten the respect that they deserve, the recognition that they deserve. Okay, your question. Why should hip hop be
celebrated for being 50 years old? Why should it be celebrated?
Because it is one of the examples of the pinnacle of human intellectual achievement. It's like anything else that reaches a point of reverence.
Well, let me ask you a question, Justin. Mm-hmm. When was the 50th, 60th, or 75th anniversary of jazz?
Yeah, but those are genres of music. Hip hop is a culture. We look at them differently. We're not talking about rap records. That is the difference between hip hop. And I know it's very easy to get synonymous, but that is the difference.
Very easy.
They don't even call it. The number of times they've changed the charts to say, okay, this isn't hip hop, this is rap. There are plenty of rap songs that ain't hip hop, right?
Would MC Hammer in that category?
No, I'll put The Devil Goes Down to Georgia. Devil Goes Down to Georgia. He was looking for a piece of pie, whatever. Looking for a soul to steal. That mug is rapping his ass off. That is not hip hop, right? Post Malone does a lot of rapping to me under the banner of hip hop while dissing hip hop. That to me is problematic.
Well, listen, Jason Miles is in the chat. He's saying punk is a culture. Rock
punk is a culture. And guess what? There is a punk museum. I just went to the punk museum in Vegas 2 weeks ago. It is a culture. Punk is one of those things. But it's not like hip hop itself is a culture that's not centered like immediately around one thing. Right? You can go someplace and look and see hip hop and not hear it. And so to me, and punk is one of those things that is celebrated like that, by the way. Like I don't know the 50th anniversary of jazz, but I did go to the Punk Museum, and they did the Punk Museum laid it all out in Vegas. Fat Mike, shout out to Fat Mike. So so that's just kind of how I look at it. But hey, that is up to jazz aficionados or people who disagree with me and look at jazz as a culture for them to explain when the 50th anniversary of jazz is, because I don't know. I don't know the answer. There's no disrespect. But I think that hip hop itself speaks to community in a very different way. And I think the timing of hip hop allowed it to have different pockets of communities communicate with each other consistently on a regular basis as well. Right. Like, so, okay, yeah, I guess 50th anniversary of jazz. When does jazz come out? I'm not quite sure. Let's call it 1910, let's say, something like that. I don't know. Let's say that's what it is. I think it's very difficult to communicate with people, who may be into jazz but in another city or in another part of the country or whatever. I think sometimes outlier moments in history have a lot to do with just timing, right? I mean, hip hop came at a point where there were street lights that people could rig to turn on their speakers. You know what I mean? So, I can't compare it to anything else. I firmly look at it totally different when it comes to hip hop as a culture versus rap as a genre, or the music side of it strictly as a genre. I look at it as a culture differently. That's how I feel. But, just because we don't know when the 50th anniversary of jazz was doesn't mean they didn't celebrate it. I'm pretty sure they did this with rock and roll, though. I'm pretty sure I remember like rock magazines saying 50 years of rock and roll. I could be wrong about it, but I think the difference is, to me, hip hop is the pinnacle of human intellectual achievement because it is so much more than just something that is, something you find on the radio and on sales charts.
Well, all right, that's fair. That's fair. Let's move on to the next question. With Lord Jamar making statements like today's female rappers have glorified quote-unquote whore culture, what do you think of the state of women in rap? Do you have a favorite female MC right now you think is empowered and empowering?
It's funny. It's like what's worse, thought rap or fuckboy rap? I don't know. I see a lot of thoughts, a lot of fuckboys running around here. No, I think it's been a long time since I've been critical of. I feel like there is I think this is bigger than hip hop too. I think that when women exercise their agency in one way or the other, and particularly scattered ass looking ways, right? When they exercise their agency, it always tends to lead to the same problems, quote unquote, or conversations, or whether or not we're talking about whether it's good or bad. Like we've seen this before, right? We saw this with Lil Kim, we saw this with Kaya, Yeah, we when My Neck, My Back came out, My Neck, My Back, My Pussy, My Crack, right? That is not far away from My Pussy Pink, My Booty Hole Brown. It's not that far. And they talk about cracks, right? So to me, this is an old thing. This isn't even like new, right? So it's like, okay, we're doing this thing again. Now, I do have favorite people.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Listen, you're a student of the industry. You understand the business behind this. At what point, can we question the motive of record labels to feel that it is productive to market the hypersexuality of Black women, understanding that we live in a society where we have these three kind of paradigms of Black women? We have Mammy, Jezebel, and what's the third one that's very popular?
Fire?
Sapphire. Yes.
Mm.
So when we stuck in a society where these stereotypical tropes used to categorize black women, and this kind of like Jezebel combined with Sapphire image is always promoted, understanding that the actual mechanisms of this industry are not controlled by the artists. Don't you think that makes a statement about the music industry, that these are the notions that are being presented about black womanhood? Like, this is a long way from Latifah, ladies first.
Yeah, but if you look at like Bad Boy, Diddy on that label. You know, like black men.
Everyone at Diddy's beyond exploiting black womanhood.
Yeah, but I guess my point is, black men will exploit black women as well, right? Go look at the blaxploitation film era. The blaxploitation film era.
Believes that like all Negroes are in it together, singing Shangri-La. We're fighting the man. No, you know, if you watch it, you know, I say all the time that there's some Negroes who will put a shank in a black man, a drop of a dime, just as easy as a white guy. So that doesn't make me go ooh that Diddy or some other black capitalist will exploit his whole race. You know, that's not.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, look, I understand. But my point is, the way the question was framed, I thought you were saying like, the industry is making people do this. A white man is driving this conversation.
I mean, these guys are hip hop capitalists and moguls. Diddy's industry inside too. I didn't make this a racial thing. I didn't make this some kind of white conspiracy. I was like, I'm talking about the power of the lords of capital and empire, managers versus labor.
Yeah, I think that's how capitalism goes, right?
That's true. That's why we fight it on this.
What's the expectation?
That's why we fight it on This Is Revolution podcast.
Right, but that's like I tend to think that. What I don't know what the expectation would be to get away from, let's say, these archetype of women. Like I feel like these are biblical archetypes, right? I feel like they're old as they're old as oxygen to me.
They're very old. I wouldn't say biblical. They're very old.
Okay, and I think that. How about this, right? I'm not sure what Ice Spice looks like when she's just talking to her audience every day, right? I know what she looks like when I run across her when I listen to her music, or I see her at a show, I see a music video or something. But I don't think that is the primary entry point for most people. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I literally don't know what Ice Spice is talking to her audience every day about. I don't know. Like, she could be like, yo, guys, this is my favorite recipe. These are my favorite books I like to read. Oh, you need to watch out for stuff like this. I know Cardi B like that. Cardi B is way more dynamic than she looks when she's just performing on her social media.
Well, shout out to rappers like No Name who are really kind of trying to flip the consciousness level of female rappers by putting in some kind of radical left anti-capitalist politics.
Well, how about this? I love that about No Name, but No Name don't drop enough.
That's fair.
Why are the people who have the best messages or messages that we feel like should be amplified not dropping nearly as often?
That's fair. What do you think about Azealia Banks?
I think she's a musical genius. She's absolutely brilliant, and I think that she leans into her willingness to not give a fuck, and I respect her for it.
She makes some banging house combination hip hop tracks. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, 100%.
She got some banging music.
She's super talented, but she would be a lot bigger if she played by industry rules and standards, right?
Yeah, she's got a little. Right. Yeah, she's very
wild.
She does not like rules or following the orders of the status quo.
Right. I mean, you know what? I love. I guess she's cooled off now, but I love that Glorilla EP that came out. I think Glorilla is so American. Glorilla say stuff like, what'd she say? She'll say, don't give a fuck about no credit score. I might be rich tomorrow. That is the most American shit I heard all year. Like that is everybody in the country is literally going outside. Like, I don't care about no credit score. I might be rich tomorrow. Like that is so American. You know, she'll say stuff like, said I must be racist by the way I lead these niggas on. Like,
Wow.
that is so self-aware. Like, I mean, there's like small things like that stand out to me, right? So along with like, you know, whatever more salacious thought stuff that be happening that is polarizing or people have comments on, bars like that are the type of bars that always stuck with me my entire life, regardless. And so I like that about Glorilla, right? I like Doechii a lot. I think Doechii is like a female Kendrick Lamar, to be honest. Like, she fly as hell. And Doechii was, I think she got the Billboard Award for like Best New Artist or Rising Star Award or something last year. So she's winning awards. You know, what's the other chick name? Flo Milli, right? Flo Milli got complete. I think Flo Milli is way more talented than Sexy Red. But I think Sexy Red and Flo Milli have a similar octave, and it's just drowning out whatever Flo Milli's doing. But Flo Milli's gonna be around forever. She's from that Missy Elliott tree of artistic creativity, right? So there's a lot going on that I like. There's a lot of stuff that I'm so used to, it's hard for me to get upset about anymore, especially when they're making the same songs. My neck, my back, my pussy, and my crack. My pussy pink, my booty hole brown. These are 20 years apart. So, you know, I can't even really be surprised with the stuff that's coming out now, because this the stuff that I was jamming to 20 years ago. Why would it be any different?
That's true. Listen, and I say this to, you know, this trend to blame the sexualization of women in hip hop, like the whole Ben Shapiro's of the world who are outraged about WAP. Yo, my man, sexualization of women in hip hop is not anything new. That goes back. I mean, Foxy Brown, you got Lil Kim. That stuff goes back to the early 90s. It's not remotely shocking. You know, no. I don't think it started that way, but it definitely evolved into that by the time the early 90s came.
And Ben Shapiro
and hip hop mentioned in the same sentence.
Even though he injects himself too much in these conversations, he injects himself too much. And he had a problem with, you know, here's how fake Ben Shapiro is. He had a problem with Barbie, right? But he didn't have a problem with Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer's one of the most woke shit I've ever seen. This mug is like, oh, look at the Jewish guy who did the dope thing. They kicked him out because he's Jewish and he's ostracized. Ben Shapiro loved that one. We know exactly where people's lines don't even matter no more. When you show up, it's like, that one is something that inspires me. So we have to move the whole goalpost. That's just modern internet conversation discourse. You need a narrative more than you need to be correct.
He's beyond the clown.
Good point. That's a really good point. I was trying to watch the show while I was trying to fix all these internal issues I'm having with my system over here, and I do want to say, I know you're going to go soon, Justin. You're probably going to leave right when I say this because that's how life works. But just remember, I'm really close to you now.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I'll find you. Jazz was a culture. Rock and roll is a culture. And punk is a culture. I know you said you went to the Punk Museum in Vegas, which sounds like a complete and utter nightmare.
It was actually pretty awesome.
Because much like you said about hip hop, you know, what is punk, right? Is Pete Seeger punk in some regard because of the way he pushed back against the establishment? Is hip hop in general punk, especially when we talk about songs like The Message that really calls out the establishment? I do understand that these things are cultures, but what really is that culture, especially when we talk about the way it has to look? What does hip hop look like in 1976? 1986. I mean, the punk, rock, hip hop, metal, these things look very similar, especially in their early inceptions. Denim vests and leather Lee jeans is kind of the official uniform of all this stuff. It almost feels like it's more of where you are than the music and the graffiti, because all that varies by area. Like LA has its own style of graffiti that looked totally different than the stuff in New York, that looked, probably different than the stuff in Chicago. Dancing, of course, pop locking in Southern California, it was so much different than the breaking that was going on, until you kind of get this mishmash of it in the 80s. How do you feel about, like, when people bring that kind of stuff up to the hip hop discussion?
I mean, I think it's better when hip hop is not the biggest or the only, big genre of music, right? I think hip hop's actually, because hip hop's so sample based, right? So I think hip hop's actually stronger when there's other strong stuff around it. So to me, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, Walk This Way, right? Like, Run DMC literally covered the Aerosmith song.
Aerosmith. Who were a bigger band than rock.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that it's, it's the natural synergies of just urban art forms at that point in time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I feel like we don't look at certain, quote, urban art forms the same way. You know what I mean? Like, we look at hip hop as this strictly inner city, urban, only the grit of these poor kids that were destitute did it. And I don't know if we look at the early days of punk the same way.
Did punk come from here? Or did it come from England?
Ramones.
I would say from
here.
Here?
I would
Ramones
say
were the first
pretty
one?
American. I mean, again, you can go back and forth of who influenced who, but I think that first wave, I would go with the Ramones, maybe the New York Dolls, a very East Coast thing, and it's somewhat suburban. And you could say the same thing for hip hop. Everybody wants to say it came out of, like, people with no heat, but it's like, really? How can you afford equipment?
Oh, but they stole it. That's where they got it from.
Everybody stole everything.
That's where
everything.
If we're talking about the people, if we're talking about from Flowers to Bambaataa and those cats, like, in order to get that critical mass of all these people with equipment, that literally was from the blackout. I'm not saying everybody stole it, don't get me wrong, but yes, a critical mass, absolutely. That is actually a thing.
I mean, we had
that's literally a thing.
LL Cool J talking about his origin in hip hop. He says his grandfather bought him $9,000 of equipment to start making music.
That's my point.
But that's also 15 years past the point I'm talking about, or 10 years past it.
Well, the blackout was in 77.
No, it was it was 77.
Yeah,
77. Yeah. So that's like seven years, right?
But we're also saying that everybody that stole stuff, that's like saying that the LA riots in 92, everybody that stole stuff from the LA riots started a band. Yeah. Okay.
Well, no, I think it was. I think that that really there is a level of critical mass. I'm not saying everybody. Yes, I think that would be. I think that would be crazy to say the lights went out, everyone stole everything, and not everybody. I think no one is being that literal. I hope you're not taking me as that literal. But what I am saying is that is the critical mass necessary for anything to. That is the outlier moment that made it so that the average person had a shot, or that a poor person did have a shot, or that this group of people over here got to get more to sell, or whatever. And anybody who was paying $9,000 in the 80s, that is a special situation. Period. I don't care what you're buying.
I agree.
LL Cool J said his dad bought him $9,000 worth of music equipment. You can buy a house in certain parts of America for $9,000.
Yeah.
So I think that's more of an outlier than. No, for free. The cats came up stealing this shit.
The point I'm trying to make is that this notion that everybody in the early days of hip hop does not mean 1973. Early days can mean, for me, up until the mid 80s, quite frankly. In the early days was growing up, with this kind of urban toil narrative. Yo, man, some of these cats were from the suburbs of Jamaica Queens, who had parents who were stable, middle class employees in good jobs. Run DMC, I think Run's father was an administrator at university in City College. Man, these cats, all these cats. Scott LaRock was a social worker. That's a fact. All right.
Yeah. Same thing with Chuck D. Chuck D went to college.
Chuck D grew up in Roosevelt.
What's his name?
He graduated from Adelphi University.
Uncle Ralph McDaniels, right? He went to college. He majored in engineering. He worked at the first cable company in essentially America. Like Manhattan Cable was basically the first cable company, or one of the first cable companies in the country, and had access to all these cameras. And that's why he was the first one shooting the parties. These are educated people. But I don't think education means that you ain't down to come up on something.
No, I'm not trying to make the argument.
That means.
I
think that narrative just suits the genre so. But I think that narrative suits the genre so well, right? It really plays into it, and it's also assuming. And then you could play into it too. You can be like, "Well, I stole my first system." I don't know that. None of us can prove it. You just can say it. Let's think about how big that stuff. Who was that was making in Fear of a Black Hat? They make a joke about stealing sofas and matching end tables during the riots. Yeah. Like going back and that joke. It's funny because you got to think about how big things were. Right. I think we think about stuff in the sense of, oh, this is how small a sampler is, or this is how small these are massive speakers. We're around the same age. You remember them house stereo systems your parents had? Yes. These are massive things. So we're assuming that everybody in a place where people don't necessarily have cars are
make multiple trips.
Multiple
trips. It's like before you take, we got to get equipment.
You move as a crew. You move as a crew. You get your shopping cart or whatever you got with wheels in it.
I wish if people always go to black people like, if you're a time machine, where would you go? Like 1977 in New York for the blackout, because I want to witness all these Negroes forming a goddamn team like a fireman line in the old days to see. We must get this system for the park parties.
Yeah, I like that. I'd love to see that shit too.
I gotta see this. I got to see this thievery because I feel like it's.
So you're incredulous. You're incredulous about this. You don't think that this was as big of a thing?
No. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure people stole shit. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
They did.
But everybody that stole shit happened to be a godfather of hip hop, and it just kind of plays into the narrative of the rebellious nature of the music. We'll never know. We'll never know. There's a lot of oral history in the creations of genres. Right. And as a person that spent a lot of his life in a music studio around early hip hop cats, around early punk and metal cats, it's a lot of crazy history, and it's rare to hear the same story twice. I'll say that too. So I know you're a busy person.
Yeah, I do have to get ready to run, but I gotta be interviewed for a documentary. Next 90 minutes or so I gotta head.
We got to go to Pioneer Chicken in SoCal.
I've never been there.
Negroes always eating chicken, man. Always eating chicken.
Is it good?
I've been wanting. It used to be good when I was a kid. I don't know if they had them by you where you're from, but there's only like two left in the whole country.
I was in the South. They didn't have them in the South.
There's only two left in the whole country, Justin. We got to go.
Where's the other?
We got to make this. One's in Bellflower and the other one's somewhere in LA.
Yo, man, when you coming back stateside?
Monday.
You gonna be here for a while or what?
No. I gotta. Me too. I have to do some podcasting.
Yeah. Well, shoot, hit me up. I'll be here on Monday.
All right.
We go to Pioneer Chicken.
Oh, dude, you said nothing but a word.
Yeah. There it is. I got to try this out now. There's only two left.
Look it up. I
got to go check it out before, they're all gone. And then in the future, someone's like, everybody act like Pioneer Chicken was everything. I bet Pioneer Chicken was nothing, actually. But we'll never know.
Justin, thank you so much for hanging with us. Thank you for putting up with all my audio issues beforehand.
Man.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, man. And like I said before, and I will say it again with you here on the screen, I think you are a gift to not just the hip hop community, but the journalism community in general. And I love whenever you post new stuff. It's always a very thought provoking show. And you are even an inspiration for me to do the stuff that I do here. So,
well, thank you very much,
I
man. I appreciate
the
that.
opportunity to interrogate you with Jason's questions.
That was good, though. That was good.
These are my questions.
You said,
some of those were Japanese questions. I only had like two.
Y'all,
Two or
it was,
three.
man. Y'all are family. I really appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much.
All right,
All
bro.
right, Justin.
Anytime.
All right, talk to y'all. Peace.
That was Justin Hunt.
Yes, sir. Very good.
Pascal Robert, M. Toussaint, thank you guys so much. There was a lot going on. I think I was trying to explain to people. I live in a weird kind of apartment complex, and there's a guy that just moved in next door, and he got Wi-Fi installed while I was not here, and they disconnected my Wi-Fi connection. And so my neighbor that lives in the house next door found out, and he threw me over a line, but it's shared connection, so it's like, God forbid they watch a movie all of a sudden.
Are they going to be able to fix that for you?
We always talk about neoliberal hellscapes, so it's not like you can go down to. I hope you guys. This is funny. I was crying about this to MT last night. You can't just go to a place and complain about service, because there's no like Better Business Bureau. You can't sue anybody here. Nobody cares. So if I go down there and say, hey, you guys cut off my Wi-Fi, they go, okay. I can yell if I want to, and Americans love going down there and yelling, and they just go, okay, we're not going to fix it anytime sooner. So,
wow.
Yeah, I have to go down there very politely, explain my problem. But again, it's a problem that nobody cares about.
Very frustrating.
I'm not the happiest camper right now, but I really enjoyed what I was able to hear while I was fighting to get on.
Yeah.
Were
you podcasting on Monday?
I will be with Ben Burgess. We're going to be in studio because he actually works out of a studio in LA.
Oh, cool.
And me, Ben, and Jordan are going to go in studio and discuss some movies. Ben interviewed Cedric Johnson right before Cedric left.
I saw some. Oh, did he?
Really cool. Yeah, right before Cedric left, they did an in-studio show that we been trying to do for a while. And originally, I think I was trying to get down there for that too, and I couldn't make it for whatever reason. I forgot what it was. I think maybe I got stuck at the border or something. And we've just been talking about trying to do more stuff in studio. Even when Ben was living here, we were talking about renting a studio here in Mexico just to make it easier on stuff like this that happens where your neighbor gets Wi-Fi and they decide it's going to cut me off.
Mm-hmm. So Ben is working out of a studio in LA now?
Uh-huh. There's studios everywhere over there, man. Everywhere. And they're all set up. They literally, Ben, the studio he's in, has the same soundboard I have, 4 mics already hooked up, camera mounts hooked up. So we're going to be set up with a multiple shot show, plug and play.
Wow.
Yeah.
How expensive do they go in LA?
I could not answer that question. But it's a pretty cool setup down there, and that's just one of, like I said, many studios. And you're seeing more shows do that now, especially all those guys in LA. The multiple cameras set up, walking in with maybe even just your laptop and turning it on and being able to go. It's pretty neat. I'd love to do this in studio. I mean, imagine if we were all in studio right now. I'd just be tickling Pascal all the time.
Hey. All right.
I got to say, I really appreciated Justin's answer for the women in hip hop question, because I think that's a question that only hip hop gets, that no other genres of music get to that same level. I think we look at sexuality in rock music as women taking hold of their own agency. I don't know if we look at it the same way in hip hop.
It was pushed back against Lita Ford licking that block of ice.
That was in 1987. Lita Ford was part of the Runaways in the late 70s, early 80s. Their manager, according to them, sexually assaulted all four of them. They were all from kind of broken backgrounds, and they were supposed to be a sexy version of AC/DC. She was not that successful early in her solo career. She wears those skimpy clothes in the Kiss Me Deadly video in 87, and then doesn't really have to go back to it for the rest of her career. But I don't know if she's held in the same regard that like the booty hole brown woman or the eating Negro's ass woman or even Little Kim is. Because her whole thing wasn't necessarily, sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
It was the fact that she actually was a pretty decent guitar player. And I think she's also remembered for the ballad she did with Ozzy Osbourne with her clothes on. You know what I mean? You could put your clothes on in other genres of music and walk away from the sexuality. There's a group called the Butcher Babies in metal, and they're two women, a black woman and a white woman, singers. And they were strippers. That was what they did. And they were actual fans of metal. They got a deal. This lawyer was signing all these kind of LA strip bands back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they were one of those LA strip bands. And their whole thing was they put electrical tape over their nipples when they performed.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah.
And that's how they would get you to come in. They would be playing like the Key Club or like the Viper Room somewhere in the Sunset Strip. And the guy at the door, I don't know if anybody watching the show ever spent time on the Sunset Strip back when there was like shows all the time. These were all like pay to play shows too. Like the bands had to sell tickets. But the guy at the door would be like, "Hey man, come inside, man. There's these chicks on stage right now. They just got electrical tape on their nipples. They're hot strippers, man. Come check this out. Come check this out." There's no more electrical tape on their nipples. They don't have to do that anymore. Does the booty hole brown, can she do a song about, taking her kid to school without sucking 5 dicks on the way there?
All right now.
Jesus.
That's the question. Can Little Kim have a song about being a grandma? Is she allowed to mature, or is she forever stuck as a 24-year-old woman? And that's the question I ask all these people. That was kind of the thing that Sinead O'Connor said when she wrote her open letter to Miley Cyrus that she got like really vilified for, was like, people will use you up in this business. And once you get to be a certain age, you are no good to them. Once those looks go, you are fucking no good to them. Character is important, and sometimes we're not allowed to have character as women. This, and I'm super fucking paraphrasing. You guys can read it, if you want. It's out there. But Sinead O'Connor is one of those people. It's the same with like Michelle Ndegeocello, Tracy Chapman to a certain degree, I guess, who really went hard against the grain of traditional looks and selling sexuality. I think Michelle Ndegeocello's music is extremely sexy. I don't know if people look at her as sexy because she's a bald black woman that actually plays instruments.
Well, I like Tracy Chapman a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You just like
Michelle Ndegeocello is very good as well. I like her too.
I mean, someone said Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill, I can't think of she doesn't come out of that ladies first Moni Love.
No, she's younger generation.
Yeah, all those women kind of came out at a time where positivity was just hip African medallions were just hip.
Rise of Generation X cultural nationalism.
Oh, dude. So they ride that wave, and then then MC Light needs a roughneck.
Yeah. I like MC Light. MC Light has a very interesting. Paper Thin is a great song. Have you ever listened to the lyrics to Paper Thin?
Mm-hmm.
You want to recite it for us?
Paper Thin is it's a very interesting song for such a young woman to have written a song like Paper Thin in the 80s. It's quite amazing.
Did she write it?
I think she wrote it. I think she wrote all the lyrics.
Roxanne Shante.
Shante was a force to be reckoned with.
Somebody in the chat said that Pascal used to go out with Roxanne Shante in high school.
I did not go out
She's a little older than Pascal. No, actually, I think you guys are the same. I think you guys are the same age.
Close, but she's probably a little older than I am.
I think you guys are the same age.
I don't know. The Googles
because you're a little younger than Biz.
Yes, Biz is a little older than I am.
Yeah,
I was born the same year as LL Cool J. LL Cool J is actually older than I am by a few months.
LL Cool J is a testament to steroid use.
Wow.
Anybody that says steroids will kill you.
Get the hometown homie, man. Come on.
Hey, I'm saying it's in a positive light. LL Cool J is a testament to using steroids the right way.
Wow, I'm actually older than Roxanne Shante by 2 years.
I told you. She was super young. She was like 13 or 14.
She was really young.
That's why all those dudes were really protective over her.
She was, let me tell you something. Shante was a dope MC, man.
She was.
Shante, man, she was very. I remember the Roxanne Revenge when I was in high school in that era. I remember the era. That stuff was. She came out fire.
I forgot Gangsta Boo died. Yeah.
But let me tell you something. MC Light, is MC Light my age or older than me? I think
it's got to be your age. MC Light is in the greatest movie of all time.
What movie is that?
Yes, she is. She makes no sense in that movie. I would love to meet MC Light and play those scenes for her and be like, what was the motivation of this scene? Because even you look confused.
Chase the rap.
Wow, MC Light is younger than me too. This is scary.
So all these Pascal dated people. So now the new lie is Pascal dated.
No, I mean, what's funny is that MC Light and Shante are the same age as my college sweetheart. They're literally 2 years. They're Torre's age. Torre is 2 years younger than me.
Jeremy S. asked a great question. Why do hip hop and rap folks tend to be better and more successful actors on average than, say, rock or pop musicians? I don't know. I would ask the question, who are you putting in that category? Busta Rhymes?
I would argue that why are so many rap and hip hop figures targeted for film and music, film and TV compared to rock?
They're not anymore.
People wanted a certain authenticity that rappers were supposedly giving them. I think that rappers are liars and they're actors and they're acting like rappers. And that's why the skills translate. So
if Fresh Prince of Bel-Air would have flopped the first season, you never get In the House. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a massive hit. You got In the House, but really after that, what do you get? Are you putting Brandy in that category because of Moesha? Like, I don't know how many hip hop, television, and movie stars there are. Every movie. MC8. Who else? Like who? Like seriously, like rappers. How many rappers compared to Meatloaf has been in more movies than Ice Cube? Or he passed away. John Doe has probably been in more movies than Ice Cube, the singer from X, or one of the singers from X. Leaving a Fear has been in tons of movies. I mean, there's tons of people in the rock world.
Steven Van Zandt, is that his name?
Who?
Van Zandt.
Which one?
From Springsteen's band.
Oh yeah, he's been in tons of stuff. Debbie Harry's been in a bunch of stuff for decades now. She's probably a bigger actress than she is in some people's eyes.
Most Def is probably the best rapper that became best actor rapper I could ever imagine. Do you see that? Do you see that? What was the name of that show Most Def did? It's probably what it was on HBO. The story about the story about the black man in Maryland who was a doctor, but he was not a doctor, but he was a doctor's assistant, and
the syphilis thing. Where they were giving
he was doing. Was it the syphilis thing? I forgot. Yeah. He was doing some kind of assistant.
What was the Ben Carson story?
I don't know if it was Ben Carson. I forgot, but it was very. Bro. When I watched Mos Def's acting in that, it blew me away. I was like, "Is this Mos Def?" I was like, "Are you joking?" I was like, "This cat was like a legitimate, like dramatic actor."
He is. It's current. He's still alive. Tupac. People were saying Tupac. I think Tupac would have gone had he lived. He would have done the Hollywood thing and forgotten about hip hop. Easy. That man dripped charisma. They said he's a theater kid.
Mos Def was on the Cosby Show. I did not know that.
Was he on the Cosby Show? Who the hell was he on the Cosby Show
for a long time?
Who was he on the Cosby Show? Was he one of Pam's friends?
Pam.
Remember cousin Pam?
Oh,
I was shocked. I didn't remember, but I was shocked to find out that Blair Underwood was on the Cosby Show.
Yes, he was on the first or second season. Blair Underwood also directed a Megadeth video. Blair Underwood has the oddest fucking resume.
Blair Underwood directed a Megadeth video?
Yep, he actually did a behind the scenes of it as well. You can hear him talking about wanting to do it. He's a very interesting gentleman. Very interesting.
Is he an LA native?
I don't know. Tucson, is Blair Underwood from LA?
I don't know.
Blair Underwood is Justin Hunte's real daddy.
Justin Hunte's real daddy.
Blair Underwood finally is older. He is 4 years older than I am. Blair Underwood. Rakim was born the same year as I am, but he's born in January, so he is almost a year older than I am. Wow, LL Cool J is actually older than Rakim. That's kind of scary because Rakim doesn't.
Again, LL Cool J is a testament to steroid use. Like
no one here can confirm that LL Cool J uses steroids.
He admitted it.
A legend.
He admitted it.
Where did he admit that he uses steroids? Where?
Blair Underwood is from Tacoma, Washington.
Really?
He's like the only black man from Washington.
Quincy Jones is from Washington. Quincy Jones is from Washington.
That's true.
Quincy Jones is from Washington. Listen, let me tell you something.
So is Hendrix.
Can I be very transparent? I find Quincy Jones will be very interesting. I had a friend of mine who was like, "Why does Quincy Jones only date white women?" And I was like, "Come on, that's just, don't say that's not true." And she was like, "Yo, I guarantee you will never find any history of Quincy Jones dating a black woman." I said, "Come on, man, that's not true. Why does it matter?" I was like, "Who cares?" I was like, on a humble, I started doing like researching Quincy Jones dating history. This cat was living in the state of Washington, dating white women like in the 30s and 40s. I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "How is my man doing that in Jim Crow eras?" And
Quincy Jones is so fucking old.
I was like, she interracial dating in the like 30s, 40s. I was like, how is he doing that?
Quincy Jones, we want you to score this movie. You mean talkies?
Jeez.
I had a female friend of mine who told me something interesting. She said, "Watch the Quincy Jones documentary on Netflix," and I watched it. And she said she had a theory. She said her theory about Quincy Jones dating white women was a result of the fact that he had an abusive mother. and that he basically resented his black mother, and that's why he did. I was like, why are you trying to psychologize this guy? She was like, no, I think that's why. I was like, come on, man, get out of here with all this nonsense.
Wait, that's not true, because I had an abusive mother, and then you would just be a guy like me.
This may be logical. That maybe, yeah, you're maybe proving the point, because we know you don't date Negroes.
That is not true. There's one mad at me right now.
He said the thing we're all thinking.
There's one mad at me right now.
Yeah,
and it's all your fault, Pascal.
How is it my fault?
It's all your fault. Yeah, I hope she's not watching. She's probably watching, cursing me out as we're talking.
Interesting. Jason's like, that's not true, because I had an abusive like mother, and you have like 5 Filipino children. What are you talking about,
Pascal? There's so many white women sneaking out of your window right now.
Listen, it makes clear.
Struggling to get out of it too.
I prefer black women.
I am not a crook.
I have dated various women from various cultures. My theory is that if someone makes you happy, that's up to you. But my preference tends to be black women.
Preference on paper tends to be.
My preference on paper tends to be, but this white woman that you can't see behind me.
Sitting behind your chair.
Sitting right behind. It's just, you can't see the fingers rubbing his back right now.
Anyway, listen. we can switch subjects now.
Meredith, calm down. Pascal, but do you date like white women or ghetto ass white women with that
man, let me tell you something.
Karen haircut?
The haircut.
The haircut.
You don't want, if you're going to date someone, you don't want to date someone who's pretending to be something that they culturally are not.
What if they're just from the hood and they talk like this?
Nah. First of all, I don't want to date anyone with that kind of behavior.
With the nails?
No, I'm not a fan. Actually, the stereotype of the women that I've dated are kind of like, they're kind of radical. They have radical politics, or they're very preppy. I've dated a lot of preppy women too.
And they don't talk like this.
Nah, I can't. I'm not gonna lie though. Very honest though, I did have a crush on a sister one time who was really hard and from the hood, man. She was very interesting.
Toussaint figured me out a long time ago. She says that I am attracted to ghetto ass women.
No, you like to be beat up by ghetto ass women.
Sit on his chest. Punch him in the face.
Yeah, I'm looking for a woman that can start fights, but doesn't ask me to finish them. Like, that's where I draw the line. Like, look, you can start all the fights. I'm not
just
finishing
admit
that
you
fight.
were thoroughly stuck in the I appreciate my Filipino sisters. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, man. Filipino women, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you right now.
Uh-oh.
Someone asked me, who do you think are some of the most beautiful women in the world? I got to tell you, Ethiopian women. I think Ethiopian women are literally the most beautiful. Like, they're gorgeous. I think they're the most beautiful women in the world. And they were like, okay, that's fair, because Ethiopian women are very beautiful. You like Filipino women. There's nothing wrong with that.
I like any woman that likes me back.
Jason, you have like 3 Filipino ex-wives. Let's
Stable of ex-wives.
Only 2. There's not 3. Calm down.
2 ex-wives and 1 ex.
Somebody said Jason got scared when he heard there would be no bananas under socialism.
Oh no.
Oh shit. Look, I do have a bunch of these beige kids. I don't care.
They're very beautiful.
I like them. One of them turned 25 yesterday. Shout out.
I saw Jayla turn 25. I was very thrilled. Get her on the show. Call Jayla, see if she'll come on the screen.
I wanted to get her for the birthday party, but
You didn't have her information?
nope.
I made a deal with the kids to keep them off camera.
She's been on camera.
She's been on camera, and that was my bad.
She wouldn't have to be on camera. It can be done.
I can see if I can get a hold of her. Let me see. I'll see. Let me see.
See if she can pencil you in.
Pretty much. She's a very busy young person.
Yeah.
She did call me on my birthday.
That's nice.
She's her and my mom are the only people that remember my birthday.
Oh my God. I don't think that's the case. I think that you may have some kind of energy with some other loved ones in your life that may be an obstacle.
My dad has so many kids, but he just doesn't remember.
Justin Hunte will remember your birthday.
He should. We have the same birthday. My daughter is not answering her phone. I'm assuming she's sleeping in. My kids sleep in. My kids are super sleep in people.
It's very early still where you are. I forgot about that.
I mean, it's late enough that you should be awake. And when they're here, like when my daughter stays here, she prepares herself to wake up early because she knows I'm gonna like do things to wake her up because it's payback.
Oh God!
What?
For being a baby.
Being a baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Dude, have you ever been around babies? She had colic and she just cried incessantly. Oh.
I've never asked you this, but I actually would love to. What was your philosophy about corporal punishment when you were fathering your kids?
Oh God, I was like any other young father that didn't know what they were doing, and you just revert back to how you were brought up.
So you used to beat the shit out of your kids?
No, I got mad at my son once, and he looked at me like he was scared, and it fucked my head up, and it just destroyed me because I was like, that's not how you're supposed to look at me, and I was like, oh man, that sucks, dude. So I stopped being kind of mean when that happened, because you never want to look at your kid and have them look at you like a bully.
No, I agree with you. I think that I don't like corporal punishment of children at all, man. I think it's very traumatizing for children.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. My dad, I think he hit me like one time. Not that I was like an angel or anything, but he did this thing where he would make me feel horrible. Like I never wanted to let him down.
You clearly didn't have Caribbean.
He totally pimp talked me. My dad like pimp talked me out of trouble.
Really?
His game was when he was a younger man, he definitely could convince me that trouble didn't make any sense.
Mm.
And he would have like one conversation and then it would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Trouble doesn't sound fun. Yeah, I don't know how you guys got beat.
No, man, my father's Haitian, dude. That's all I got. What are you talking about? You ask? You gotta ask.
Nice.
So, dude, I was terrified of my father until I was 17 years old. I mean, like pissing my pants, terrified. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm still scared of my dad to a certain degree because that Negro's crazy. Like I've seen him lose his shit, but I don't know. He just there's this way of him, like you know, he could just say no and it was enough. He just looked at me and it was like no. And
very intimidating to me. My dad. People asked me to describe. I've said this on the show before. People asked me to describe my father. I said, imagine James Evans Sr. from Good Times with stable employment and a Haitian accent. And that was my father.
Said stable. I think that's what makes them Negroes scarier. It's like being on the Death Star with one of the Grand Moffs walking around. You know the fuck that, right?
Let me tell you something, man. old school, very angry black men are very fucking intimidating. Very honest with you, those motherfuckers are very scary, man. Oh my! Let me tell you something. You ever see the scene from what was the last play that Denzel Washington did? That was the
Fences.
Fences. Yeah. You know the scene in Fences where the father confronts the son and he's making the lecture where he's talking about how, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't do this because I like you. I do this because you are my son and I owe you. Like that whole, you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yo, I remember my father giving me a monologue like that. Like I posted that scene on Facebook, the old version with James Earl Jones, and I remember all of these dudes come on my page. It was like, yo, my father said the same shit. It was like therapy, man. We were all commiserating, like, yo, I've heard that same shit. I was like, yo, these niggas was terrifying, bro. It was incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tucson you can commiserate.
Yeah, Tucson. I know. Did you have any? My daughter's not going to be no. Like, have you seen? I forgot to send it to you. There's this dude that makes these videos where he does things with his daughter, and I think I sent it to you. And I wrote projection much, and he was having a big tea party with his daughter, like a fake tea party. And he goes, "I'm taking my daughter to a tea party so she knows how to be treated. So busted ass cats like you don't take her to Red Lobster, and she thinks she's doing something."
Oh my gosh.
Yo, was your dad like that?
No. My dad was he was always a very sympathetic character.
Mm-hmm.
Like if any of us found money, we would give it to him. We just did. Like, here, you can have this. I mean, he was the breadwinner, but we didn't understand that. He just, I don't know. But he was also very, very intimidating. Very intimidating around the neighborhood too. One of these people who knew everyone and had people watching you and watching out for you. I remember once I went to the bodega and I bought all of this stuff, and I didn't really have enough money, but some dude was like, "Are you Tony's daughter?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I got it." Dad, what kind of business are you running?
Her last name is really Soprano. It ends in a vowel.
Yo, my father hung out with a group of guys who definitely had some like Haitian Goodfellas kind of energy about them.
Yes.
What is a Haitian Goodfella like? I want to hear what it sounds like.
Yo, it's not good.
It's not good. It's not.
No, my dad was the kind of guy that when holidays would come around, because he lived in a horrible neighborhood. And so when holidays would come around, like Halloween or Easter, he would do things in the house because the neighborhood kids you couldn't have an Easter egg hunt in the 80s and early 90s in Richmond, California, where my father lived. So my father would be like, hey, he'd go to because he knew a lot of the people from growing up in the area. He would tell them, come to my house and we're going to have an Easter egg hunt for the kids. And we're going to hide eggs all over the house and kids can come here. Or we're going to have a Halloween party for all the kids. We'll have music and candy that they can eat and they can dress up in their costumes so they can have fun. Because you couldn't knock on doors back then. It was very dangerous to just go around knocking on random doors in Richmond, California in the mid to late 80s. So, but he would do it with this grimace on his face. He wouldn't do it smiling like, I'm going to help the kid. He'd be like, God damn it. Like, it's fucked up. This is not right. So he like took it upon himself to make sure all of us had fun on kid friendly holidays. He's a decent cat. He is. He's still alive. He's still alive. He's a good dude. But we should open up the phone lines and let people call us and tell us about their dad. We can have a therapy session.
Oh my God.
They're supposed to tell us about hip hop. I don't know how we got on this topic.
Yeah, I know.
Because we're all old.
Oh.
Oh wow, two sons pulling the youth card here.
Yeah.
Toussaint's only 27.
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Dan Cougar says hip hop is dead. Okay. You know what Earl Graves, the deceased founder of BET, said about hip hop? He said hip hop was a soundtrack to the destruction of Black America.
Wow.
Destruction about Black America.
You know, I can't lie about all of it, right? Some of it really was like, oh, we're going to murder everybody to a beat.
When they made the bullets part of the beat.
You know who says that's when hip hop died? Everybody's favorite hip hop historian, Questlove, that I don't always agree with.
He wrote a whole essay about that.
Yeah, he really felt like when 50 Cent had the gunshot as the snare in that one song. I can't remember the name of the song. But he was like hip hop.
I remember when I was on Black Star Media. They asked me, "What do you think hip hop went wrong?" I said, "When crime became an aesthetic of hip hop, that's when things fell apart."
Gangster's life ain't fun.
I mean, there was a part where people were talking about gangster stuff, but like in the certain point in the early 90s, crime became an aesthetic of the music. It wasn't just like there's a few songs about criminal shit. Coke rap, when you had the rise of the Coke rap era, you got all of this. I mean,
the music, but it's never always been all of the music. And I think we have to remember that much like something like country and Western, they go through their Coke period as well. With all those outlaw country dudes, those dudes were all Johnny Cash, one of the greatest country artists of all times. Is probably has one of the most violent lyrics of any genre of music. I shot a man in Reno
killing his wife,
right? Yeah, he did tons of dope. Loved singing about doing tons of dope, and kind of shepherds in this outlaw country era. Him and Waylon Jennings and guys like Johnny Paycheck. That were just those guys. When you talk about hip hop and violence, it's all imagined. When you talk about country music and violence, them niggas was doing that shit. Shooting each other, shooting people in the head and getting shot. They were nightmares. They were fucking nightmares. You don't have those same stories. Now you have them in hip hop. Because there's a marketing capacity to all this violence that wasn't there 30 years ago. You can think about this, Pascal. These country dudes were doing all this stuff. Nobody was reporting on it. Shooting each other, beating the shit out of their wives. Every horrible thing you can think of, they're literally living and singing about the life. Hip hop people are kind of just talking about it. Posing with guns. Eazy-E with a Kevlar vest holding a shotgun at one point in time was the most frightening image anybody could think of. Who did Eazy-E shoot? No, I'm asking. Who? Nobody knows because he didn't shoot anybody. Maybe he did. I don't know about it. Hip hop visually was so frightening because it was young black kids with a middle finger in the air with weapons. And that was the image. But the reality was cities like New York, cities like Los Angeles and Oakland, where I'm from, Chicago, they were going through the crack era. And hip hop, to that point, really was the soundtrack of that era. Whether or not cats want to agree with it, whether they want to accept it, it really just was. So it seemed more frightening than maybe the music actually was. And what were they all saying? We don't really do this stuff. We're just reporters. We're just the news that's not giving you the real news, which is bullshit, because I could turn on the news any day of the week in that era and see Negroes that look like you doing what you're saying, doing dead. We used to see the news. It doesn't happen as much like it used to. You'd always see reports. They talk about drive-bys, and they'd have like the body bags out. You could see. And era is gone. And now these kids are shooting each other for clout. beating the shit out of each other in public because they can. Because, oh, you bragging about having money, now we're going to beat the shit out of you. Take it. Because we can. And that's cool. It's different. What say you two, son?
I agree with Tahir, who says drill rappers are different. They shoot their ops and post the song and video on YouTube the same day.
That to me is a culture of the moment that we're in right now, where I have to show you what I do to prove that it happened. We're still old enough to be like, I'll tell you the story. Just telling the story doesn't mean anything. Proof for it didn't happen, right? That's kind of the saying moving forward with the camera in everybody's pocket. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's fascinating how many people record their crimes. It is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. But what's more important, robbing the cat or going viral for robbing the cat? Because even if you go to jail for a little bit, you're going to come out as a celebrity. You'll be known as the guy that robbed the cat and streamed it. There was I think I was talking about it on the other show. There was a streamer kid that was yelling at Andrew Tate. Have you seen this, Pascal? I showed this to you. He's a kid. He's like 18. And he does that thing where he just yells at people and calls them names. He's just being real over the top, you know. Granted, Andrew Tate is a horrible person. And he was calling him out on the horrible things he did, but he was doing it in such a, like, you got to watch yourself, kid. And somebody recognized him in the street and they beat the shit out of him.
Wow.
And they streamed the ass whooping.
Jesus.
Like, beat his ass out of his clothes, took his glasses, started posing with his glasses. And every time he was like, come on, man, it's my glasses. They were like, what? Say I'm a bitch. He goes, fine, I'm a bitch.
Wow.
So bad that Andrew Tate, after the kid yelled at Andrew Tate hit the kid up and said, I will teach you how to fight.
Oh, that's a humiliation, man.
And the kid who came was like, oh, this is the worst time of my life. Like, he got this, like, Pascal, they whooped his ass. When you are on camera, oh, fine, I'm a bitch. It's like, ooh, ooh, it just hurt my soul. But he was making a little living. I mean, I'm not even trying to be funny. He couldn't be more than 18 years old. He was making a living, a pretty good living. Just yelling at people, calling them all kinds of names. And that happens in the UK quite a bit, where people don't like stuff people say, and they will literally put the call out, like, whoever this person is, you know, Assmaster 227, one of my fans, find out who this guy is, and I'm gonna go show up at homeboy's house or homegirl's house.
Assmaster 227. Sounds personal.
227.
Got a story you want to tell?
I was about to say, man, you revealing your secret life there, brother? Assmaster, dude? We have a whole session about what is this fascination with ass. Let's talk about ass.
We cannot do that again.
No, not right now.
Someone says that's my porn star name. But, you know, everybody has a stupid ass internet name. Try to be clever. But, dude, rap beef. I saw some people talking about that, and I had a clip, and sadly my internet's all screwed up, and I'm so terrified to try to pull this clip to give to Tucson. But someone was talking about Tupac and Biggie dying, and how, I can't remember who it was, and how kind of shocking it was for the industry, because you have these two massive figures of the industry, 1 and 1A of hip hop, kings of their respective regions, you could say, at that time, dying within, was it a year or months apart?
It was like a year, man.
I don't even know if it was a full calendar year apart that they die. And they die in such gruesome fashion. And for Tupac, it was his second time getting shot.
And they're both unsolved.
So it was so shocking to the genre. And again, this is a genre that has championed a certain criminal aesthetic, to Pascal's point. But how real was it? Why was it shocked? If it's so real, why were we shocked? Why did everybody say Tupac should have never went to Vegas? Tupac should have never gotten involved with that fight with that guy and that chain and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But it's supposed to be so real.
A lot of people weren't shocked, and they said, well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Did they really live by the proverbial sword?
They didn't.
I still blame a lot of it on hip hop journalism.
Yeah.
Hip hop journalism, in a lot of ways, was trash. And I'm still angry about it because I wanted to be one, a hip hop journalist. I thought that was
be like Justin Hunte. Justin Hunte is great.
Justin Hunte is great, and he made it through the blog era too.
Hip hop journalism is interesting too because there's women in the early days of hip hop journalism,
correct,
that play really important roles. And we don't talk about people like Dee Barnes, who for a minute in the 90s, at best, she was a punchline. Sounds like Ava DuVernay's homegirl.
Not only punched line, but got punched by Dr. Dre.
She got punched. She got beat up by, I think I threw her down a flight of stairs.
Proud moments in Black history, proud moments in hip hop history.
Dr. Dre is a billionaire.
Yeah.
Dee Barnes struggles with housing insecurity.
Yeah.
Mull that over for a minute. You know, hip hop journalism, or journalism of the genre in general, is kind of one of those things where I get why people just keep churning out the same fluff piece, because you can't really be critical of people, especially if you're, you know, a frailer journalist.
Well, I mean, that's where Star and Buck Wild and Wendy Williams come in, because
oh man, Star, that Negro. That's a funny guy. That cat. Let me tell you something. Have you ever watched? I caught on to Star very late in life. I started watching this YouTube, and I was like, "This is a very interesting cat, man."
Mm-hmm.
No filter cat.
None.
No filter cat. But he was out there. He was out there, really throwing haymakers in the hip hop media sphere early on. And Wendy Williams was just spilling all kinds of tea.
Right.
When she was in the radio game, man, I was like, wow. A lot of cats did not like Method Man. Hated Wendy Williams, man.
They used to date.
Is that true?
My understanding, they used to go out while he was married. And then, you know, Pillow Talk, he mentions that his wife had cancer. And then she goes on the air and says that his wife has cancer.
Her family didn't even know that she had, and he there's a YouTube video of him where he addresses that, and he curses her out in a way that will shame your mama.
Yeah.
Does he admit to giving her the business?
No, I was not. I've heard rumors to that effect, but I didn't believe that it was true.
Apparently, she did this one thing that he really liked, and he couldn't get that anywhere else.
He couldn't get it anywhere else. What was that?
Anywhere else?
Does Method Man like to get pegged?
Tossing the salad.
But as far as Star and Buck Wild, there was a time when Keith Murray was the cops were after him. They were trying to find him. And so Star launches a search for Keith Murray himself. They find him. Keith Murray's like, stop trying to look for me.
Why would he do that? This sounds like a real dick move.
You don't know Star, man. Star is like the inside hater. He's like, yes, I'm a hater, and I am proud.
Do you guys know the story? I don't know if it's on the Netflix you guys have in your Americas, but there's a documentary I saw when I was on tour in Brazil, and they have it here in Mexico on Netflix about a Brazilian, I don't even know what to call the show, because some places in Latin America, there's just crazy shows that encompass 25 million things. It's a variety show. It's a fucking America's Most Wanted type show. It could be like 12 things in one show. This guy had one of those shows where he was like finding like most wanted people in Brazil. And sometimes he was finding people like right away before the police even could do it. And they found out the reason why he was finding people is because he was literally sending cats to go kill people. And then they would do the reporting on it. That's one of the wildest stories I've ever heard in my life. There's a whole huge scandal over there. So is Star kind of the same way? Like he knew where Keith Murray was because they were friends and he just fucking wanted the story.
No, I believe he lost the search. People ratted him out. Why would you do that to somebody?
Like that was the first to put out the African Bambaataa sexual predation controversy that went away. Wow, Star was very early talking about the allegations of Bambaataa being a sexual predator. Star was a hip hop Rush Limbaugh. He had some conservative leanings. He definitely had a bit of a pull up your pants Negro kind of vibe.
So was he mad at Keith Murray for his horrible diction? Is that what he was mad at?
Like, I mean, this is about Star had a very interesting aesthetic. Is that he was a hip hop media insider who could critiqued and antagonized hip hop for its social dysfunction. So he played the role, was like, look at these goddamn fatherless bastards out here destroying our community with their music. I mean, that was like his vibe. He was so he played a kind of conservative shtick. The reason why I won't call Star conservative is he's probably voted Democrat his whole life. But the thing is, though, he's very much a social conservative about behavior and what that is. There's there are a lot of guys my age and older who are like that. And I'm not saying I'm excusing that, but the point is that he played that role within the context of being a rather successful hip hop media personality, and it was funny.
Yes, very funny.
I don't understand the snitchiness though. That's like hood shit 101. I don't care if you're from the Appalachian Boondocks or the Bronx circa 1975. If you tell on somebody, you're getting fucked up.
Star doesn't care.
He didn't turn him in.
No. There have been times I've heard him say he prides himself on telling niggas, no, I will call the feds on you.
Like that, right? Like that kind of talk right there. Again, I don't give if you are from the hood in Upper Vermont, somebody gets fucked up for that. Pascal, you went to school in Boston. You know how them white boys are out there. If somebody's over there just a little too mouthy, if they think you're a little too mouthy,
I'm not saying I'm a fan of the whole call the feds and call the police energy. What I'm saying is that how interesting it is. What fascinates me about Star as a character is that he maintained legitimacy in hip hop media by breaking so many of the normative taboos.
That's right.
Within the media and still had legitimacy and still say, yo, I keep a 45 or a Glock on me at all times. Please step to me if you do, if you want.
I mean, you would have to if you're going around telling on people like that. Like
Actually, no. Wendy Williams always says, "You'd be amazed. Nobody says anything to you."
I guess it depends on who you're telling on. First of all, a lot of, again, back to what we said originally, a lot of these people aren't as real as they would like to believe or they want people to believe. But if you're telling like real cats, like that's not going to end well for you, because then nobody wants to deal with you.
Some non-rappers.
I mean, look, someone wrote in the comments that there's a lot of snitches these days. Look, prisons have been filled with snitches since prisons have existed.
Oh no, I'm not. Again, I'm not trying to say it was a good thing or reward the activity, but the bottom point I'm trying to. The cat made that. He played his post and he was able to make it funny.
Right.
What's not funny? The sirens in MT's neighborhood.
Oh my gosh.
MT goes, you can hear that? Hell yeah, we can. It's a fucking siren. You're supposed to hear it.
They just want donuts. It's a nice neighborhood.
You live by donuts? Is that what you said?
I do. I live near donuts.
M2 son live in Brownsville.
Stop. He said I live in Brownsville.
Oh shit.
Oh my gosh.
I got Tucson and Uber back in New York last summer. I think that shit was like $80.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Uber cost.
Where do you live in the city, Tucson? Oh, don't hide yourself. Don't what's the word?
I want to be a snitch and dox the shit out of you. Where do you live exactly?
Don't dox yourself. She does sound like she lives in Brownsville, though. Brownsville is probably the only part of New York City that has a theme message that lets you know how fucked up it is. You know what I'm saying? Everyone in Brownsville will tell you Brownsville never ran, never will. Why you gotta run though? You know what I'm saying? I mean, everyone in Brownsville said Brownsville. That's like a quote from Brownsville. Brownsville never ran, never will. Like, why y'all trying to run though? Bed-Stuy, do or die. That's true.
Hey, I'm trying to run. Do people just shoot randomly in Brownsville?
Brownsville is a rough town, man. Brownsville is a rough. Brownsville is one of those towns that, like, gentrification. You won't be seeing no gentrification in Brownsville.
Brownsville sounds like a place where, like, just dirty-faced little kids running around all the time with snot hanging out their nose. Is that what Brownsville looks like, Tucson?
Nah, it's just, it's New York City projects, Brooklyn, very rough.
Yeah.
Listen, Mike Tyson is from Brownsville. You know who else surprisingly is from Brownsville? Which I was shocked to find out. The woman who played Thelma from Good Times is from Brownsville.
Why were you shocked to find?
Because she doesn't give up that kind of New York City vibe. If you ask me where was Thelma raised, I would say St. Albans, Long Island, nice middle class.
Trees.
The way that she would yell at JJ,
I would have never thought that she was from Brownsville, man. Brownsville is rough, man. Someone said Pascal classes.
Tahir must be from the Bay. He said Brownsville is a Richmond, California of New York City. Okay, so that makes me understand Brownsville. Brownsville sounds like it's a horrible place then.
Come on, why are you trying to get me beat up, bro? I'm not trying to shit on Brownsville. One of my best friends in life, who rest in peace, died, was from Brownsville. Let me tell you, Brownsville, strong people, good people, but it's a rough neighborhood.
I mean, I can say the same thing about where I'm from, but it's a violent place. So, scary shit, man. Scary shit. It's funny. Again, I live in Mexico, and I still to this day, people be like, man, you're not scared living out there? I'm like, bitch, you live in America. Ain't nobody getting shot at the mall here. Ain't no school shooters here. Fucking crazy. Don't lock my door. Once I cross the border, I'm scared to park my car.
Mm.
You Negroes breaking in everything. Jeremy Logan says Richmond, Cali is the scariest place I've ever hung in. Damn.
Richmond is that bad?
There were some parts. I haven't been back. Where my daughter, bless her soul. My daughter wanted to move out so bad, and I think she thought she was a little. I can say this because I know this chick ain't watching. I think it seemed cooler to live, and it's also where you can live where you can afford. And they found a spot like kind of like nestled right in the heart. You know how when you start driving in a bad neighborhood and it progressively gets worse?
Mm.
She lives like right in the heart of that. And it's been wearing on her for the last few that she's been there. They definitely want to get out of where they're
rough.
living. When you're not from it, it's really rough. When you're from it, like I had to go to a different school to know that I lived in the ghetto because it just was. Right? These things just are.
And nobody's smiling.
and for her to never have to be in these places, her grandparents weren't living in these places. There was just no family that she had that was from these areas, and then to kind of dive feet first in the deep end of the pool, I think was a bit of a culture shock for her. You can listen to all the hip hop in the world, but it does not prepare you for the realities of life in these areas. Like the last time I was there, there's this thing we do that we just go to McDonald's to hang out. Sometimes we just get coffee. We just hang out and talk there. And there's one within walking distance of her house. And her boyfriend is from the area. And him and I are from similar areas. And so, you didn't meet her boyfriend, Tucson. But anyway, I parked my car and I had picked up a bunch of my guitars I was taking back home. And so I parked my car. I was like, hey, I can leave my car here. Is that cool? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, let's go walk to McDonald's. They're like, we can't walk all the way to McDonald's. I was like, it's like around the corner. They're like, oh, no, we can't go to the McDonald's, Pops. That's what her boyfriend calls it, Pops. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, oh, no. He was like, no. He goes, we could be watching your car and them niggas would take all your shit. And I was like, nah. I was like, I've been going there. He goes, I know maybe you did back in the day, Pops. He goes, we can't go there anymore. We'll go to the one. There's a city adjacent to them called El Cerrito. That's a lot safer. Like, we'll go to the one in El Cerrito. I was like, this is crazy. I was just here all day. They're like, no. And that's kind of the world that she's in, and she's just not used to that. And she doesn't like it. Like, I've never living in the ghetto, this shit's rough. Like I said, you don't really understand, but you don't like certain aspects of it. That's why when people glorify it so much, I'm like, why are you glorifying this shit? Like, it sucks when you got to dodge bullets. Like, that shit's not fun.
Alrighty then.
I forgot my co-hosts have never dodged bullets.
I did not.
I keep thinking you guys are gonna be like, mm-hmm, word. And you guys are like, oh.
Well. I've been dodging bullets adjacent my whole life.
In Brownsville?
In Brownsville, in my very safe neighborhood in Brownsville.
Well, you guys lived in Queens.
I lived we also lived, I lived in Cambria Heights, which was a very nice kind of like black suburb. It wasn't rich. It was a working to kind of middle class. Like, we had like bus drivers and maybe a teacher and a doctor on our block. So you range from working class people to maybe a couple of educated, black professionals. But
Do you ever watch Crack House Raid?
nah, man, we didn't have that in our neighborhood.
I've seen raids. I don't think there were crack houses.
What were they?
Here's the thing about New York City. You gotta say something about New York City. Wherever you live in the 5 boroughs, you can't escape proximity to crime and fucked up neighborhoods. So, like, I will live in Cambria Heights, but Hollis is like not too far from me. Hollis used to be a middle class black neighborhood that became increasingly bad in the late 70s and in the 80s. Hollis is where Run DMC are from. It's where Cool J are from. It nice houses, still middle class black folk, but it was infiltrated by a certain criminal element at a small period of time. Parts of Hollis got kind of rough. You know what I'm saying? So, and also, you can live in New York, you still got to take the bus and the subways. And at some point, you may have to interface with, you work in Manhattan or you go to school in Brooklyn. You got to go through some rough neighborhoods. So what I'm saying is that growing up in like a Cambria Heights or a Rosedale, you can walk to Linden Boulevard and have someone like selling crack on Linden Boulevard, and you still live in this like middle class neighborhood. So New York structured way where you can't totally escape like the urban, downward behavior.
It was around you, but it wasn't around you.
Exactly.
Interesting. Tucson, that's the same thing for you when you went to Fame High School. Yelling at you. You're gonna have to sweat.
Fame High School is right across the street from King High School, Martin Luther King Jr. High School, which, as you can probably guess, is full of violence.
I would not guess that. There was a King Middle School in Berkeley, California, that my very good friend, who I'm trying to get back on the show, he hasn't been on the show in a long time. My friend Chris Riggins actually just did a stadium run with Chappelle, and he has a whole bit about how he went to King Middle School and he doesn't understand when his rapper friends or his other black friends talk about life in the ghetto. He's like, my parents are still married.
Yeah, wow.
He said I had a great life.
That's cool.
So Eric W says, you smoke crack, don't you? I feel like Pascal is old enough to have been to the Lean On Me high school.
Lean on me.
That's the era.
Were you in high school during Lean On Me?
When was Joe Clark actually a principal? When was Joe Clark actually a principal? Was it in the 70s or 80s?
It was in the 80s.
80s.
I started high school in 1982 and graduated in 86.
Yeah, that was he was a principal back then. When they called him Crazy Joe, and now they call him Batman.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, before we go, can we talk about all those movies about principals that had to come in and be tough? Remember that movie The Principal with Jim Belushi? Wildcats with Goldie Hawn to some extent, with Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. People forget about that all-star cast. You remember Wildcats? It's the sport of kings, better than diamond rings. Football. You don't remember that movie?
You've watched all of these like yesterday, so
there was just a moment where
you don't remember.
When Pascal was in high school, the moment he's talking about, there's all these things happen. Again, back to the urban decay. So these tough on crime principles come to light, and Joe Clark was one of them that was all over the news. Joe Clark was on Arsenio, I believe, right before Lean On Me came out. He got a lot of publicity. I mean, go Google Joe Clark articles before the movie came out. You guys are talking Dangerous Minds. That's like almost 10 years later. I'm talking The Principal had to be like 88 because they filmed that in Oakland at an old school. I remember that. And then there was Lean On Me, Stand and Deliver, about Jaime Escalante, who had kids passing this super high calculus exam, kids that could barely read a couple years before. Remember that? Stand and Deliver?
Yeah.
I remember that.
So
I
there were
love that
all
movie.
these movies that came out that were kind of different high school narratives. They were the not the John Hughes stories, because remember John Hughes stories are all about just different kinds of white people having feelings. And these were movies about usually brown kids that had to pull up their, but not even pull up their pants, just had to stop, you know, the cycle. It was always about a cycle of poverty. And they were going to be
Precursors to the popularity of charter schools, ironically.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely felt strategic. And those movies were insane. Movies like Class of 1984. There were so many, Class of Nukem High. There were so many of those movies. And I know you remember some of these, Pascal.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, man. Well, again, we've done the analysis on our show here about how popular culture is a way to kind of socially engineer behavior within the context of American society. And, the birth of underclass ideology and the concept that really starts in 1977 with, I believe, with an article in either the New York Times or like the New Yorker, was where the article of the concept of urban underclass really starts as a means to really justify demobilization of urban youth and people in an inner city with the heightening of deindustrialization that goes on from the 80s to the 90s and the rising need to kind of like neutralize surplus redundant labor with either incarceration or other policies. It's very effective to kind of have movies like Lean on Me, where these kids seem like they're so incorrigible. I've got to come in here and beat them down. Damn it! You guys know the song to the alma mater? What's wrong with you? I'm Joe Clark, damn it. I'm the head Negro in charge here.
Very sad.
Had Negro in charge. That was a big deal in that movie.
That was the first time I ever heard that term.
Well, I've known that term before. HNIC.
I've heard
that was
first time I heard it explained.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I thought Morgan Freeman was Joe Clark, and I thought Morgan Freeman was the hardest nigga alive when I saw Lean on Me as a child. Then he drove Miss Daisy.
I remember Morgan Freeman from the Electric Company when I was a kid.
Yeah, I remember that Morgan Freeman, but when he was Joe Clark,
Easy Reader.
You call me Crazy Joe. Now they call me Batman. And then he drove Miss Daisy. I kept waiting for him to just turn around and be Joe Clark. Didn't happen.
Driving Miss Daisy, the role, which was the role that really catapulted his career?
Driving Miss Daisy.
Was Driving Miss Daisy after or before
Lean on Me?
Lean on Me.
I'm going to say after, but I'm sure someone in the chat has their fingers on the Google machine. Are they going to be faster than Tucson? Tucson, was it before or after? Quickly.
What? I'm replying to someone in the chat.
God damn it. Tucson.
What am I looking at?
Is it before or after Lean on Me?
Dr. Claus is correct. Robert Guillaume was the one who did the I'm the HNRC out here.
I was right. It was after. I told you. He did Driving Miss Daisy and just is in another stratosphere, dude. Then he does Shawshank. He plays an Irish man named Red in Shawshank, and nobody even batted an eye.
In Shawshank, he was Irish?
Mm-hmm. That's a line in the I forget what he says. The question they ask him.
I think he was being sarcastic.
No, his name is Red.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think when he said he was Irish, he was being sarcastic.
No, that his character was supposed to be Irish, and so one of the jokes is they keep that line. I forget the question they asked me. He goes, "Oh, maybe it's because I'm Irish." Somebody says he was kidding. No, that was the whole thing.
There's some kind of like reverse albinism in Ireland that makes you black.
he just killed the role. Like, sometimes people just, hey, we wrote this for another guy, but you just killed it.
Shawshank Redemption was a very scary ass movie, man.
I've never
Oh yeah,
seen
the
it.
question was why do they call you Red? Yeah.
Hold on. I'm just like, you've never seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yes, no spoilers.
If you haven't seen it in 30 years, you know how it ends? They die.
Thank you.
I'm just saying, have you ever seen The Godfather?
I have. That was a big deal in my family. They would shut down the house and have parties and bring all their friends over and just have viewings of The Godfather.
Goodfellas? Did you watch Goodfellas?
I've seen Goodfellas.
Okay.
What's with Haitians and Italians? Is there like some sort of symbiotic
Well, mess
relationship?
with Haitian Sicilians. Remember that line from
That's
Wycliffe?
true.
What are Haitians? Okay, explain this to me before we go. I need to know what is the deal with Haitians and mafia movies.
First of all, there were in the late 19th century and the early 20th century, there was an embarkment of Italians that actually came to Haiti. They some of them left from being immigrants to the United States and then left the United States and came to Haiti, and some left in Italy and came to Haiti. There was a small number, probably a few thousand, and they actually had an influence on Haitian culture. For example, Haitians have a certain thing in our cuisine we call vermicelli. Vermicelli is spaghetti. A lot of most Haitians are familiar with eating spaghetti with little sliced up hot dogs for breakfast.
That's
That
disgusting.
that spaghetti was introduced by Italians that came to Haiti in the early 20th century. I'm sure Toussaint, you're familiar with vermicelli. I'm sure you're not alien to the Haitian spaghetti concept.
Yeah, we had spaghetti.
Did your parents call it spaghetti? Or do they call it vermicelle?
They called it spaghetti.
Did your
Our
mom
parents
serve
were
it to you like this?
comfortable with allowing us to be American.
Yeah, Toussaint sounds like she grew up in a very American adjacent Haitian household. What's up with that, Toussaint?
My parents kept being Haitian to themselves quite a bit.
Interesting. My ex-wife's family was like that, but they weren't Haitian. But yeah,
Well,
same thing.
I think they had to do with the part that the fact that their marriage was falling apart. They were able to speak to each other in front of the kids without the kids knowing exactly what was going on.
That's the most heartbreaking thing I've ever heard somebody say live.
Aw, well, that's part of my my theory.
Origin story.
My origin story. It's why I'm very good with tone. I can pick up things in tone very, very well.
That's why you don't speak the language.
That's why I don't speak the language. Or one of the reasons why.
But Pascal speaks it fluently. We could drop him off in Haiti right now.
Please, they would know you're from America.
Yeah, that's
your Yankee dollar.
I mean, most people would know that I speak Creole with an American accent.
Let's do another Haiti show.
I have a potential guest.
Wednesday, you have a show you have to do.
I'm working on getting. I've been reaching out to Milton. His email bounced back to me. I contacted him on Twitter. He finally got back to me.
Do you want to tell people what you're planning, or you want to keep it a secret?
My other show for the Mau Mau Hour is to discuss Niger and Francophone Africa and what is going on in Niger and their attempts to distance themselves from France and French colonialism.
This should be a good one. If you want to be part of the live virtual audience for the Mau Mau Hour, there's only one way. Become a patron for as little as $2 a month, $30 for the year. You can have all that access. And on that note, we've been chilling here talking about hip hop and having a therapy session for the last 2.5 hours. Thank you, M. Toussaint and Pascal, for picking up, doing all of the heavy lifting while I'm still having massive technical problems. I'm going to hang up from here and attempt to use my very elementary Spanish to say, hey guys, you disconnected my internet on accident. We'll be back Tuesday. I think I'll be by myself Tuesday. You guys don't care.
Who's the guest on Tuesday?
Pasquale, and it's always going to be a struggle for me to say his name. Pasquale Romero. We're going to talk about the economics of the music industry. We're going to talk about how much money do people really make when you are a quote unquote successful artist. As Pasquale has left his successful music career to work a regular job because it wasn't as successful as people thought.
COVID.
I mean, this was before COVID. He left years ago. He left. He also worked in film too, and it was easier for him to move back to where he's from and leave all of the platinum records behind because it is not as much. It's not as all that glitters isn't gold. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And on that note, we are
out.